Hello again and welcome to another Mordian Glory bolt action video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our ever critical eye over another bolt action unit. And once again, we shall be delving into the Armies of Germany book. We've been doing a lot of German tanks recently in this series, and we've been getting progressively bigger and bigger. The last installment, we looked at the Sturmtiger. But you know what? Let's go from one end of the spectrum to the completely opposite end. Let's look at the smallest German tank. And you know what? The one that might just be the most meta and competitive. I am, of course, talking about the mighty, the venerable Panzer I. And without further ado, let's take a look at the good, the bad, and the ugly of this German light tank. As is tradition, let's begin with a brief overview of what the hell this unit actually is. At first, the Panzer I may not look like much. Its starting cost is 56 points for an inexperienced one, and you can take it as regular for 70 points. There's no option to take this thing as veteran. With such a low points cost, it looks ridiculous when you compare it to some of the other things that we've covered in the series, like the Mouse, which costs like 600 plus points, and the Sturmtiger and all that kind of stuff. But 70 points is very, very good because it makes it cheap and cheerful. You can chuck a Panzer I in your list and have plenty of points left over to make the rest of your list get the job done. For your paltry points investment, you will get a vehicle which has 2 turret-mounted medium machine guns. Bear in mind that this is 2 separate machine guns, not some weird forward-facing and another one rear-facing situation. Nope, 2 forward-facing MMGs in a turret, and these are German MMGs, so they both get to benefit from the buzzsaw special rule, which means that in total, this unit is going to be putting downrange 12 medium machine gun shots. On top of this, the Panzer I has a damage value of 7+, making it an armoured carrier. Now, it's not technically a tank, so you won't be able to tank shock with it because it needs to be 8+ to do that. But damage value 7+ is still very respectable because it makes it entirely immune to small arms fire. People can't just fire a bunch of rifle shots at you and kill you. It means that anti-tank rifles at long range can only glance you. And so someone is going to have to, whether they want to or not, direct some proper anti-tank against your cheeky little Panzer I. Sure, the moment that like a light anti-tank gun starts going at it, that round's going to go through the front and out the back. But that's an anti-tank round that is massively overkilling, and it's gonna be much more of an investment from your opponent's side than it is for you. It's also important to note that the Panzer I is not open-topped. There are quite a few Armour 7+ vehicles, especially in the armoured car section of the German book, which are 7+ and then also open-topped, which makes them immune to small arms fire for damage, but very much susceptible to them from getting pinned up. A good example of this is the 222 armoured car. But the Panzer I is fully enclosed, so you can't pin it up unless you can penetrate its armour. In terms of its options, the Panzer I can replace its MMGs with a light automatic cannon, gaining both the flak and the open top special rules. This will cost you 10 points and it represents the flak Panzer I. Don't overlook this option. Autocannons are pretty tasty in bot action. They're a great weapon that can handle a lot of different threats. The 1-inch blast and the high rate of fire with the 2 shots coming out of it means that light infantry can get shredded by it. And you've also got the pen +2, which means that even at long range, you'll have a pen value and you'll be able to potentially stack some cheeky pins on enemy units. Even if they're well armored, they'll have to test to see if they ignore the pins, and if they're not well armored, well, pen plus 2 will allow you to start penetrating the armor even at long range. Also, the fact it's a 1-inch blast means that it does D2 pins, so on a 4+ it will do an extra pin. So it's a 10-point upgrade to get an 80-point 7+ armored carrier black cannon in your army. It's not a bad choice at all. Personally, I'm leaning towards the double MMG because I don't really like open top things, but I can definitely see the value of that light cannon. That just about covers the high level overview of the Panzer 1, and we have touched upon a few of its good and bad traits there, but now let's dive in a little bit deeper and take a look at what is so good about the Panzer 1. Why is it super meta and competitive? Firstly, as far as light infantry shredding options go, and bear in mind Bot Action is very much the infantryman's game, there are few better than the Panzer 1. It is immune to all those small arms. So you send this thing after infantry. It's not going to get into a fight with another tank. Don't even try and get into a fight with another tank. But send it down a flank, and you see some enemy infantry coming up the other way, you can just start shredding them and just firing and firing, just blazing away, just scything them down. And even if you're not killing that many, you're going to force your opponent to go down when he's getting shot at by 12 medium machine gun shots a turn. Also, it's highly maneuverable. If you compare this to a medium machine gun team, which is 50 points and only gets 6 shots and can't properly move and shoot, it can pivot a bit, but that's it, and also is just highly susceptible to getting shot to death and being taken out by mortars and things, just 20 points more, you get a Panzer 2, which can move and shoot no problem. It's immune to small arms, it's not as easily going to get mortared, and it's bringing double the firepower. Unless you have a specific tank in mind, unless you're taking a tank to do your anti-tank duties, there's very little reason to put a medium machine gun team in your army, and very little reason to not put a Panzer 1 in your tank slot. And for the record, I'm not speaking about this from an objective theorycraft point of view. I have used I've used 2 vehicles that are pretty much identical to the Panzer 1 to great success. In my Imperial Japanese army, I like to take the Type, I think it's 82, it might be 87 armored car, and I also like to take the Type 95 Hargo. Both of these are about, well, the armored car is 70 points and is essentially identical to the Panzer 1, okay? And that thing is the scourge of my local game group because it's still an armored vehicle, so you need to actually use those one-shot anti-tank weapons against it. And like I said, the one shot, so they might just miss. There's still range, there's still like cover to take into account. So someone's like trying to hit you with just like a light to medium AT gun, and they're just missing, and your armored car is just bimbling around, or in this case your Panzer 1 is just bimbling around, just scything people down. And bear in mind, that Japanese car only gets 10 shots. It doesn't get 12. It's not got the buzzsaw special rule. And then I do the same thing with my Type 95 Hargo, and that's 90 points. And it's the only reason that's 90 points is because it has the low velocity anti-tank gun. If I could strip that low velocity anti-tank gun out and pay 70 points for it and have it do the same thing as being a double machine gun carrier, I would. And it's all of this stuff which makes it so competitive. You see, big tanks are often seen as quite a large investment that rarely make their points back. You have to spend 300 to 400 points on taking a German heavy tank, and it might just keep missing with that big gun. That's why you're paying so many points for it. And sure, it might not take much damage, but if the enemy does get a sneaky shot past its armor, it might just die. It can still die to a single shot. The Panzer 1 can happily blaze away with its machine guns, making it reliable. And if it dies, you don't care. It was 70 points. It was 7% of your list in a standard 1,000 point game. That leaves you an incredible amount of points left over to take everything else that you need to in your list so that you can win games. Now, of course, there is a big problem with taking the Panzer 1, which is you then will have to spend points elsewhere to get anti-tank. But this being the Germans, they have access to really easy anti-tank in the form of the Panzerfaust. This is what makes the Panzer I so much better than its contemporaries in the Imperial Japanese Army with those aforementioned Type 95s, Type 87s. The Japanese, when I spend my tank slot on a Hargo and my armoured car slot on the little car, I then don't really have a cheap option to shove in my list that could also do anti-tank. I'm just going to have to accept the fact that I'm probably going to be playing with very little anti-tank. I might have some of the improvised explosive guys, but they're hardly reliable. In the German army, you get the Panzerfaust, and pretty much every squad can get them, and they're 5 points. So if you were to take 20 Panzerfausts in your army, which is a ridiculous amount, you're never going to take that many, it would only cost you 100 points. If you have that to covering your anti-tank, and then you have the Panzer I, it's going to cost you in total 170 points. Well, that is still far and away less of a points investment than even a standard Panzer IV, which is going to come in at 235 points. And comparing it to some of the really big cats, it's half, if not more, of the points saved. So, and that's using an extreme example. You're probably not even going to take 20 Panzerfaust. You'll probably take a dozen, but it's 60 points. So for 130 points, you've got an armoured vehicle that covers loads of your anti-infantry, and you've got enough anti-tank to spread over your army that you don't need to worry about that either. Now, one last thing to talk about is if you were to go down this light armour spam, what vehicle could you pair the Panzer I up with? That covers your tanks. What about having a decent armoured car? Well, fortunately, the Germans have got an absolute buttload of armoured cars to choose from. You've got the light Adler armoured car, the 222. There's a lot of different options. For me, I would stick with going with a fully enclosed armoured car. As much as I like the Adler for just being 65 points for basically a machine gun, it's open-topped, which is a bit of a ball ache. I like the 222 a lot, and I appreciate that is a car that comes with the Gentleman's War box set, so a lot of people are going to have it, and that would be the first choice for me. I'd go 222 just because it's such a beginner-friendly and accessible unit. But in terms of the best, I think you want to start looking at the 231 heavy armoured car, the 6 rad and the 8 rad. Those are 100 points. And so they're only 5 points more than the 222, and yet they're fully enclosed. And they get the light autocannon, and they get the 7+, they get a coax MMG. And I think just having one of your armoured car, have your armoured car going around with the enclosed light autocannon, and then having your Panzer I going around with machine guns, it gives you volume, and it gives you punch, and it gives you protection, and it just means, and there's a bit of penetration there as well, so you can start shredding some other light vehicles. Pairing those two up together and having them dominate on a flank, it would be so difficult for an opponent to deal with. The only thing that they could try and do is put some heavier armor on that side. But again, these two units combined are only 170 points. Most medium tanks like Shermans are going to come in at 200 points. Yeah, the Shermans will probably get both in the end, but not before they're going to run around doing damage. And bear in mind that a lot of the armor cars are wrecky as well, so you might even be able to force that Sherman to chase its tail. It's just a really good pairing, and it's a great way to leverage the light armor spam, which again, do all this, it's going to cost you only 170 points. It's not even 20% of your list. You have over 800 points left over to fit in all sorts of other stuff that might help you counter that Sherman, or just lean in massively into killing infantry and just dominate the infantry game. And like I said, our action fundamentally is an infantry game, so if you focus on that, it's not a bad thing at all. In summary, the Panzer I is a fantastically efficient option that comes with lots of firepower on a relatively well-armoured carrier. It blows away the medium machine gun team and is faster and harder and better, and it's a very low points investment, so even if it dies, you don't care. And it combines with all sorts of different units in your army, including armoured cars, and it combines well with anti-tank options such as cheap Panzerfausts. Well, at least that's what I think. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you a fan of the Panzer 1 and the light armored spam tactics, or can you not help yourself? And if you're going Germans, you've got to have a big cat. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this video, to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordian Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.